Hi, everyone. I'm Scott Brandley.
And I'm Alicia Coakley. Every member of the church has a story to share, one that can instill faith, invite growth, and inspire others.
On today's episode, we're going to learn how one couple's willingness to serve the Lord put them in position to witness incredible miracles. Welcome to Latter-day Lights. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Latter-day Lights. We're so glad you're here with us today, and you are in for a special treat because we have some really good friends of ours, Bryce and Jennie Allen, on the show today. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Doing very well.
Awesome.
Are you getting your fill of corn out there in Nebraska?
You have no idea. They're obsessed with it.
Really? All of your
Yeah.
kiddos are eating it all? That's so funny. Oh my goodness.
So Bryce and Jennie, they and Alicia, we all used to be in the same ward together. And Alicia obviously moved to Texas, and Bryce and Jennie now live in Nebraska. So we're in different parts of the country, but we're still buddies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's cool because Bryce, we were just talking about how you stumbled across our show and everything like that. And you just happened to see it on Facebook a few months ago. And then you just went on and on about how amazing I was as a host and how like I just carry the no, I'm just joking. No, but
I mean, you are.
Awkward
You are.
silence.
That's, just looking at the success of your program, you definitely are. So yeah. I think it is a
kidding.
very, very good compliment for you there. And
Thank
Scott,
you.
you're doing great.
I'm here.
Oh. No, it is so fun being able to sit down and talk to you guys again. I'm really looking forward to the story that you're going to share today because I have no idea, like, I haven't heard it. Like you didn't, I know you mentioned maybe sharing it with Scott before, but it's been such a long time.
In all of our different camps and treks that we did while we were there, Scott, while you were in the bishopric, and I was just there.
So I always love hearing stories from friends, it just kind of like adds to like that layer of friendship. I'm like, ooh, I know even more about them now.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that. But for our listeners, why don't you guys tell everyone a little bit about yourselves?
You want to start?
I'll start.
Okay.
So Bryce and I are from Utah originally. We met at Snow College and then went to Utah State where we finished up our bachelor's degrees. And then I got a degree in accounting, but Bryce got a degree in technical theater.
I have a bachelor's of fine arts in stage management and theater technology, and a master's of fine arts in technical direction and audio design, sound design.
So
that's
in
what I do.
layman's terms, he gets to blow things up legally.
Blow things up and make Peter Pan fly.
I build. I teach my students, and I still do on the side as well. I teach students how to build scenery and props and do live special effects and rigging for live theatrical performance.
That's so cool.
That's what I do. I teach kids how to make Peter Pan fly. I guess you can call me Tinkerbell, but that's what I do.
And I work behind the scenes for his behind the scenes, and I provide background support, helping him however I can. Have our whole marriage, and the story we're going to share is one that I actually got to go and I got to participate and witness. And because a lot of times he goes and he does all these things and he tells me all these stories and I'm like, that would have been great, but I actually got to participate in this one.
Nice.
So I'm the guy that works backstage that you never ever see.
Unless things go wrong.
There you go.
Things don't go wrong in theater. So, we met at Snow where I was working in the theater there, and then we went to Utah State and did theater.
And then we...
I worked at the Utah Festival Opera there in Logan, Utah for a number of years.
And then we decided kind of out of... Well, for me, it felt like out of the blue. We went to a theater conference in March. We had been graduated for almost a year.
This was back in what, 2007?
2007, yeah. And he called me and said, I think I'm going to grad school this fall. And I'm like, what? We had talked about possibly sometime in the future. Yeah, he called and said that his portfolio had gotten a lot of people interested in his skills. And so we kind of, in the course of about 2 weeks, decided that we were going to pack up and leave the home and safety of Utah, where we've both grown up, and go to Illinois.
Yeah, went to go to my grad school at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, where I got my MFA there. So
Wow.
this was before we met any of you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. And then you guys have kids.
Yes. We have 4 kids, ages 15 to 4.
So
And
our son is the oldest, and we have 3 girls.
Yep. And
your
Scott's
girls are
daughter,
adorable.
Scott's daughter, Clarissa, was kind of our other daughter when we were in Ogden until she left on her mission. She was our, I need a babysitter. I'm going to call Clarissa.
Well, she was literally our Trek daughter.
Yeah, she was our daughter one summer on Trek. So
Yeah, and she's everybody's favorite. We all love her. Like, I know that I've coupled up Grace and Jack, and like I have already talked about how I've given Scott the cows and all of that stuff to have that arranged marriage happen. But I have a fallback with Clarissa, and I'm like, I know she's older, but maybe my boys will be interested in older women, and I'll take her on as a daughter too.
Like I said, she needs to come join my program here at University of Nebraska. So come to the Johnny Carson School.
I think she would love that.
That would be so
become
fun.
a costume designer or a props artisan or something.
Oh, that would
Scenic
be
painter.
so fun. Very cool. Awesome.
But yeah, that's where we ended. Was in,
yep. And I mean, and from Illinois, we went to St. Louis, Missouri for about 4 years, and then back to Ogden. We were there for about 7 years, and now we're in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Just the mountains.
Yeah, we missed the mountains, but
corn does not replace the mountains.
No. But it's really green and beautiful here.
Yeah.
Oh,
and the
nice.
Fireflies are beautiful. Like fireflies at sunset are pretty awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we definitely don't have those here. So
yeah.
Well, cool.
And,
so the story you're telling today is from when you were in St. Louis? Is that
yes.
right?
Yes. Before we moved back to Ogden and met you guys. It actually sort of, going through for the path of where we ended up when we were in St. Louis was actually a little bit of the miracles itself. My last year of graduate school, it's a crunch time, got to find a job. I had a wife to support and a kid. Owen was
A year and
a half, 2 years old at the time. And Maylin hadn't joined us yet, but so I was graduating, and it's crunch time. Got to find a job. You can't just go to school for the rest of your life, as much as we want to, I guess, and some of us. But so I was really heavily looking for jobs. I had signed up to do an internship at a company out in Central California that I had friends that worked there, and I had gone out there to do a 3-week internship. More of a, not really an internship, more of a guest artist residence type thing to do some work out there with them. We're just trying to get done with school and grades. And
he'd applied for a couple jobs, job postings, and
there was some in Montana, some in New York, some Ohio. I think there was one in Washington State. Yeah. I had got lucky, and I had someone call me back from St. Louis University in St. Louis, Missouri,
which is only about 2 hours from where we lived in Southern Illinois.
Yeah, about 2 hours.
Oh, okay.
The nearest airport.
Really, it was the nearest airport. It was 2 hours away. Southern Illinois is pretty sparse. There's not a lot down there.
Right.
So I had this interview lined up, and I was supposed to leave to go up there on a Wednesday night, and the interview was a 2-day interview, so it was going to happen Thursday and Friday, and then I was going to come back on late Friday night, or like early Saturday morning. I can't recall now. I was excited about it, really excited about this job interview, because it was really the first one I had as getting my first job out of school, getting a career going. And Saturday morning, Saturday morning.
It was Saturday.
Saturday morning. No, it was Sunday morning.
No, it was Saturday morning. You were at work.
Oh yeah, that's right. They had brought me in to do that's why I keep her around. She keeps me straight. Brought me in at the local roadhouse to do a tour of, I think it was Hairspray was coming into town. One of the Broadway tours. And I'm a rigger. So what that means is if you ever go to a concert or a play or anything like that, and you look up and you see all the lights and the speakers and the special effects and the whatever is up hanging from the ceiling, me and my friends put it up there. So that's the one of the specialty skills that I have. And so when you're up on a grid up above the theater, you don't carry things with you. So I didn't have my cell phone or my keys or my wallet or any of that stuff in my pockets, and all my tools are tied off to me, so we can't drop anything because there's people working below you. That would be dropping a wrench from 60 feet in the air is hitting somebody is a pretty bad deal.
Yeah.
So that morning, this was very early in the morning.
Yeah, it was early in the morning. Owen was still asleep.
5 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Yeah.
It was, I don't remember exactly what time, but I had just woken up, was starting my day. Owen was still asleep, and I get a phone call.
I had the car, didn't I?
Yeah, you had the car.
Yeah, I had the car. Yeah. We only had one car at the time.
Yeah. I got a phone call from my sister-in-law, and Bryce's dad had just had a heart attack and was in the hospital, and they weren't sure if he was going to make it. And she couldn't get a hold of Bryce, and I told her, well, leave a message, send him a text, I'll try to get a hold of him as well. And he didn't make it. He passed away that morning. And so we were trying to figure out how to get home to Utah, but he had this job interview.
Well, I didn't even know.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I was up on the grid. You actually had to come to the theater and talk to my boss.
So
get me down.
We got him down.
Yeah.
And but it didn't change the outcome.
No.
We were in Southern Illinois. His parents were in Kaysville, Utah. Not that, nothing we could do at that instant. So we started figuring out, found flights. The funeral, the viewing was going to be Friday night. And so based on flights and what we could find, basically we decided he was going to still interview for the job.
My mom and my family encouraged me to do it. Just continue with the interview. I didn't even tell them that what had happened.
Yeah. During the interview, he did.
During the interview, I didn't tell the people in St. Louis what had gone on, but I drove up there on Wednesday, and then Jennie met me.
I picked him up Friday I drove you up because
something like that.
Because I had to have the car. Anyway, but I picked him up from campus. We went and caught a flight home to Kaysville, made it in time for the viewing, and then the funeral the next day. But
the long story in there is I got the job.
Wow.
And I was floored that I had gotten the job.
But he doesn't remember a lot of the interview, but we felt afterwards when we were praying whether or not, because he had to tell them whether he accepted the job before he could actually go interview anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he actually had a couple interviews lined up that we ended up canceling. But we both felt strongly that he was supposed to go to St. Louis. And that's
we were.
Yeah, we were supposed to go to St. Louis.
And I was supposed to teach at St. Louis University.
And for whatever reason, we also had a feeling that somehow his dad was up in heaven pulling strings to help make it all happen because it was supposed to happen.
Right.
Because it was not supposed. I didn't think it was going to happen. I was a wreck during that interview. I look back at it now, and the only thing I actually remember, St. Louis University is a Catholic Jesuit college university. And the only thing I remember was I had to have an interview with one of the Jesuit priests that was in our department. And that's the only thing I remember was the interview talking to this Jesuit father and just how kind he was. And I think he knew something was up.
Yeah.
But that's the only, I remember the conversation that I had with him. I actually think I did tell him that my dad had just passed away 4 days ago. Or 3 days ago. And that's the only thing I remember from that entire interview and I, like I said, I was a wreck, but they gave me the job. I don't know what that was, but
So that was in February of 2010, and we moved to St. Louis in August.
And life went on.
Life went on. After about a year and a half, we had another kid.
Yep, Maylin joined us.
Bryce was enjoying his work. He was. It was a smaller theater program, but he was kind of doing most of the backstage stuff.
And St. Louis is a great town. It just overall is just a really nice, fun town to be in. We just loved it. Good people out there. I had good students. I had good colleagues, and the theater world in St. Louis is just thriving at the time. So I had so much work, and Jennie had work, and
I taught piano lessons, and we were just enjoying living life. Bryce got called to the young men's in our ward. Our ward there in St. Louis was an amazing ward. It just like you guys, we're still friends with some of them. Yeah. You pick up friends as you move around.
And then in January of 2013, so we've been there for about 3 years, almost 2.5 years at this time. And I got a call from the state young women's president at the time. Her name was Alyssa. And it was known that I did theater. And whenever people ask me, it's like, what do you do? Well, I do theater. And they automatically think I'm an actor.
Right.
Because that's all anybody sees. And I don't act. I have been in a grand total of 5 shows as an actor in my entire career. And I have done hundreds and hundreds of shows. But Alyssa called me and she goes, Brother Allen, we're doing this youth conference. And I was like, okay, what do you need from me? And she's like, well, you know theater. And I went, yeah, I guess you could say that. And she goes, well, what we're doing is we're doing this thing that we're calling Moroni's Challenge. And I was like, whoa, what's that? I mean, is that Trek? Is that, what is this? I never heard of it before. But what it is it's a trek through the stories and the life and the characters and the people in the Book of Mormon. And they were sort of a bit of a combination of you remember the old road shows that we used to always do?
Yes.
Yeah. So they needed some support for that because they were going to reenact 20 or so different key stories within the Book of Mormon using the youth. And they needed somebody that understood how to stage productions, even if it was just a small thing for a youth conference. So they're like, can you help us? And then I was a bit leery at first. It was like, well, I'm already really busy in the summers. Summers is sometimes what we call make hay season, because there's lots of productions that go on, and you're trying to make money for the series. But as a teacher, as a university teacher, I didn't have work in the summers. I only worked when I wanted to in the summers. So I had the time, and I went into it almost like when we went on our first date. Yes. But Jennie asked me on our first date, so I just tease her about it all the time. We just said yeah. But that's a whole nother story for another time. And so I went and met with them at a presidency meeting or something like that, and they had a whole script for it. They'd already done a script for it, and it was an event. Like, it was going to be an event. They were 3 full days, morning to night. We would have 1 or 2 or 3 reenactments. So like you would do the leaving Jerusalem and then going back for the plates, and then that kind of thing, and then we'd stop. And the youth it was a bit like Trek, where the youth was divided into smaller groups, like these family groups, but we called them cities. And each group had a city that was a city in the Book of Mormon named after them. And they had a mayor and a mayor's wife instead of a ma and a pa. And so we would do a couple of reenactments, and then we would go and have conversations about it. And there were activities, we were planning on making boats to sail across to the New World. They had the whole Tree of Life event at the end of the first day. The whole event of Christ visiting the Americas at the end of the second day. and the whole events of Joseph Smith at the end of the third day, so
Wow.
with Moroni and all of that. And so it was, lots of events. There were wars. Wars were fun. Doing the wars.
Were there rumors of wars?
Teenagers, some foam swords and some plywood shields, and let them whack each other to death, and it was awesome. So we had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun, but
That's awesome.
so I was like, well, okay, what do you want me to do? What we ended up doing is they needed help with the schedule and understanding how to do these productions and the technology, and they needed a set and they needed some props and just some scheduling help. And that's what I agreed to do. And we had fun and then we went on. A couple of things that I thought was really cool about this, and Jennie remembers some of this, was the stake leadership, like, just gave us everything we needed. It was amazing. Like, not only did they just give us everything we needed, but it was things that they did for us. Like, we went to a stake meeting at a stake. It wasn't a stake conference. It was before the stake conference we had that spring. And the stake president, I remember the stake president getting up, and they called me as a youth specialist, so I wasn't in any of the presidency meetings, but I was there for the youth conference people. And I remember he spoke to all of the auxiliaries in the stake, the Relief Society at the time, the high priests, the elders, the missionaries, everybody. And he goes, all of your organizations now need to make sure that anytime you have an activity or you're doing some planning or you're doing some work, you all have to have involvement from the youth in some way. What services can you do to support the youth, to the high priests, to the Relief Society, to the missionaries, to the temple people, everybody? And he basically said, do the youth. They are the most important thing in this stake. And he was right,
Then at the next stake conference, he got up and he introduced this idea to the whole stake and said, okay, we're asking the youth to read the Book of Mormon over the next 3 months.
A 90-day Book of Mormon challenge.
A 90-day Book of Mormon challenge. We're asking the youth, and we're asking all the adults in the ward or in the stake to support the youth and do the challenge themselves.
Nice.
So they had the entire stake trying to do a 90-day Book of Mormon challenge in preparation of the youth going to this conference in early
So
June.
we had, it was amazing. The spiritual power was amazing. And then also at that conference, the state conference that spring, Elder Bednar was coming. And our state president asked him if he would be willing to have a special session with just the youth. And he agreed. And so we had this very special session with just the youth. The only adults that were allowed to be there were the leaders, youth leaders. I was actually got to be there because I was still in the young men's in our ward at the time. And it was absolutely amazing. He just basically got up, and Elder Brenner said, okay, everybody, okay, kids, ask me anything you want. And that's what it was. It was absolutely amazing. So the spirit and the support and the power that was behind this youth conference was almost all encompassing. Like every meeting we were at, ward level, stake level, the conference was brought up, and how we were supporting it, and what did we need, and what concerns did the units have? Was there situations that we needed to change? The whole thing of all of this.
And what they had done, so they had the script, they assigned the different stories that were going to be acted out to the different wards and branches in the stake. So each, I think our ward and another ward combined together, and they had 2 or 3 stories that they were.
Yeah, because one of the wards didn't have a very large youth program at the time. And so, and as part of that, to help prevent stage fright, they were having Bryce go around with a audio recorder and record the dialogue. Yeah. So all the dialogue was pre-recorded, so the kids wouldn't get up there and forget their lines. They would just get up there and act out.
Gotcha.
And basically lip sync their performances,
just to try to make it easier for the kids,
right?
And things like that. And we had not only do we have great adult leaders, we had amazing youth leaders that Their whole goal for this conference was that they wanted to make sure that everybody felt the spirit from the youth council, and that they had fun, and that they could show that feeling the spirit didn't have to be the boring Sunday school lesson. It could be fun too. And so our kids, our youth were just powerhouses as well. Those kids were, I couldn't have done it without them at all.
Wow.
But so I got a call in January this all started for me in January, and it took us about 2 months to get things going to where we were starting to send out the details to the ward leaders and the youth leaders in the wards and things like that. And about that same time, they decided to release me from the young men's in the ward and call me to the young men's in the stake. So that's where I was then. And we ended up doing a ward conference at one of the wards. And they had a stake leadership meeting with just the stake presidency and the bishops. And they had came back with us with lots of concerns. This was a big event. It was going to be lots of time and lots of energy and lots of leaders. We had about 150 kids or more plus 160, something like that, in our stake. And so this was a big undertaking to get a campsite big enough for all of these kids, and to do the reenactments and plan all the activities in between, and food and amenities and bathrooms and all the things that go into planning these large outdoor events. And the state leaders were having trouble with not only the length of it, but
finding the right venue,
finding the it was just too much time for people to take off work. In early June, I think it was right around Memorial Day weekend, wasn't it?
Memorial Day weekend's end of May.
No. Yeah, because we did it May 30th. It was the first day.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we had some concerns. And I remember sitting down with the state presidency as the guy in charge of the schedule. And they said, all right, you have to take this full 3-day event and cut it down to 2 days or a day and a half. And for anyone that understands live production, when I do a play with my students at the university, it takes us between 3 to 6 months to plan it and get it going and to make it happen.
Right.
And to ask somebody to reschedule an entire event in an afternoon is difficult. And I remember I sat through that meeting, and I sat through a sacrament meeting after that at the ward we were in, and I just had a pencil out with the calendar and schedule, and just started trying to figure out what can I do. And I came up with 2 plans, what I called a plan A and plan B, that cut it down to a day and a half, 2 days instead of 3 full days. And it was difficult, like really difficult to do that. I had a hard time. And our leader, Alyssa, she also had a hard time. She's like, this isn't working. We can't do this. This isn't going to meet the goals that we have to get these kids the testimonies that they need. And I went home. We were really discouraged. I remember going home and just saying, I don't know, Jennie, what am I going to do? I don't know. And you shared a scripture with me that I later shared with the group, but it was about the stripling warriors and their parents, right? Yeah. And I got a call the next day from Alyssa, and
basically the scripture was, well, my question for him was, okay, in order to get the stripling warriors with the testimonies that they had, in order to be, the example that they are to us now, who were their parents? Who were the people teaching and guiding them? And what were they like? Yeah, what were they like? And we found a scripture that talked about the testimonies of the anti-Nephi Lehis, the people of Ammon, and the testimonies that they had and what they were willing to do for their testimonies. And that was those were the parents that raised the 2000 stripling warriors.
Right.
And I thought a lot about it. It was hard. Like we had worked so hard for this. We knew that it was just not going to be what we needed it to be. But we didn't want to like put people out. We wanted to make sure we were following our leadership. We wanted to make sure that people didn't take more time than they could off work so they could support their families. We wanted to make sure the youth, we didn't just turn this into like a 2-day long Sunday school class.
Right.
We wanted to make sure that the kids had time to internalize, to listen to the Spirit, to have fun, to play. Kids need to play. Even, you talk about these older kids, these are kids, 14 to 18 years old. They still need to play. Heck,
Yep.
I'm 43 years old and I still like to play. But, and then, we sat on it for a day or so. And then I got a call one morning, or actually it was an evening. It was an evening from Sister Massey, or our leader. And she had an inspiration. And she talked to me about this inspiration that she had because she just had the faith. She just had it. And it was this little miracle of, I want you to look at it, because the point is that the biggest point was we couldn't have anyone take off work on Thursday. So this was going to be a Thursday, Friday, Saturday event, but we couldn't have anybody take off work on Thursday. So she had this idea and she ran it by me, and she goes, can you put a schedule together that reflects a 2.5-day event where we didn't start anything until Thursday evening? And I went, okay, let me figure that out. Let me look at it. And I remember I sat down at the kitchen table there at our house in St. Louis, and it had taken me 2 days to work up those other 2 plan A's and plan B's. I had plan C done in 15 minutes.
Wow.
And just because it was right. There was no block. It was just right. And I called her back and I said, I've got it. I'm sending it off to you. I'm going to send it to the leaders and let's talk about it. And so we ended up talking about it at another meeting. We ended up talking about it. We brought it up. Alyssa, just with her sheer faith and determination, made it happen. And that's where we went through. We moved forward. Wow. That was probably one of the first like obvious miracles that I witnessed from that, was just the fact that having fought it for about 2 or 3 days and be able to sit down at a table with a pen and a paper and fix it in 15 minutes.
Right.
That was, that was one of the first times I went, oh, wow, that's usually doesn't happen.
And then,
yeah.
So at that point, they moved forward. They got the set built. They brought in some youth to help like paint the scenery. They had found a scout camp.
That had a nice amphitheater with a concrete pad that we could put the set on. We made props and costumes, and I did all the recordings and all the video editing. And I had my colleagues from St. Louis had allowed me to borrow some equipment from the theater that I worked at there, so we could have some lights and some sound. So it wasn't just a set. We put some time into it. The stake and the youth put some time into it. It made it look really nice. We have some pictures that we can send of what it looked like. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the week before, actually even just a couple days before the conference, and we had arranged childcare for our kids so I could go and help them, because we didn't want to pull from the youth, helped build it, but we didn't want to pull from the youth to help run it, because they needed to be able to experience it.
Yeah.
And so I went to be his
stagehand,
and to help him out. But anyway, so a couple days before, the weather forecast came in, and they were scheduling thunderstorms and rainstorms,
tornadoes.
Potential severe, Midwest.
Holy cow.
Severe weather. And so they happened to have at the scout camp a large covered pavilion where instead of setting out in an outdoor amphitheater, we could actually, there was a
set
room
up in
for
this
us,
lodge. It was their lodge.
We could set up our set, and there was room for us to make everything happen. And
inside instead of in the amphitheater outside. Yeah.
And they had space down in the basement. And anyway, so basically they went from having all the youth camp on site to because they were planning on camping in their wards anyway. So what they did is they said, okay, bishops, are you willing to open up your homes? And so the kids were going to go and actually stay at their bishop's home.
Oh, cool.
Every night. And
instead of camping because of the weather. Yeah.
Yeah, the weather just was not conducive. So that actually meant that when they got there Thursday, they didn't have to set up camp. They had more time because they didn't have to set up camp. They could go and they could actually
come and go. And the scout camp wasn't too far from most people.
Mm-hmm.
So
it was fairly central for our stake. So it was a little bit of a drive, but not too bad. There was a big grassy field just to the west of the pavilion where they could do their outdoor activities. So the venue made it all possible as well. Like the venue that they had arranged. Again,
this was a change that happened in an hour.
Yeah. Like literally it's like, okay, we can't do this. And,
luckily I have spent many years designing scenery that can be transported and set up in many different areas, especially with my work with the Utah Festival Opera and a few other companies that do summer stock and things like that. But, but yeah, it was again, but it just happened. It just worked. We had all the hands I needed. We got it put together and we got it up and we were running through the first night.
And there had been storms off and on. And they had their first battle scheduled to happen out on actually, no, it wasn't the battle. It was the shipbuilding.
The shipbuilding thing. Yeah.
They had like a relay race or something with the cardboard ships to have them come across the grass, and the rain stopped. And the sun came out. And they were able to go out. And because the whole time the leaders here, the youth, they have a rough, itinerary, but they don't really know what's going, where they're going to be and all this. And the rest of us are sitting back there because basically we were there to just help make the event happen. We weren't assigned to a group. We weren't going anywhere with the youth. Right. We were literally just there to help make the event happen. And we watched as, okay, they have 10 minutes left before they're supposed to go do this outside. And the rain stops. And so they were able to go.
And then when we come back inside, the rain starts.
They come back inside, the rain started again.
Yeah. It was absolutely miraculous how it worked.
And the next day was the same.
We had to, I remember they all went, I had about $10,000 worth of gear there. And everybody had left. But I was like, I can't leave that there unguarded. So we ended up sleeping on an air mattress.
Yeah,
Jennie
so we camped out right in the middle
of the set.
How romantic.
Wow.
The only people on the entire property just
because we weren't going to leave it, unsupervised.
Yeah.
But the next day was the same thing. We had rainstorms off and on throughout the whole day. But every time they had a battle scheduled.
Or we had any other thing.
Any outdoor event, the rain would stop, the sun would come out. And this was, as he had put together the schedule, he had the times on the schedule. He had no way of knowing when it was going to be raining or not.
Right.
I mean, Heavenly Father did.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so.
And for me, it was just me doing my job. I mean, I've done hundreds of shows and it was just me doing my job. But that's one of those things where I look at it in hindsight, and I go, this couldn't have all been me. I mean, I've done gigantic productions, and this was a very small, as things go, it was one of the smallest productions I've ever done, and it's still really complex, but it was. I just looked at it and go, how could we work this that just worked? And it just did. And that was nothing I did. It was all up to Heavenly Father, working through the education and the talents that he gave us.
And the culmination, in my opinion.
Yeah, this was, so the first day we ended at the Tree of Life. We had a whole Tree of Life event that evening, Thursday evening. And then Friday during the day, we had a lot of the wars, and we started with Aaron and Alma and all of that, and we ended with the events of Third Nephi on Friday night. And I'm going to let Jennie take care of this because she's the one that really saw a lot of this.
So there were a couple things going once again from behind the scenes, we had problems with our microphones the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like
and some of the lighting too. Yeah.
The speakers had worked, so the recorded dialogue was great. But anytime we tried to use a microphone for any live sound, it hadn't worked the entire time. We just couldn't figure out the connections. It just wasn't working. And so we had a sound.
Could have been the weather. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a microphone issue. Also, leading up to Third Nephi, Bryce had actually spent a long time putting together this whole soundscape of, thunderstorms, thunder, with
And
timed lights for the lightning.
and we had a gentleman coming in from Arizona who had portrayed Christ in some of the church videos already of the time. And he was literally flying in that afternoon, coming to portray Christ in Third Nephi for us. And he was going to catch a plane that night and fly home. He wasn't even staying the night. Like he came and left. And we were worried that his plane was going to get delayed because of the storms. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But and the youth didn't know like
Any of that. Yeah. Not even the youth council.
Yeah. Not even the youth council knew. They just knew that someone was coming to portray Christ. And anyway, so as this is coming up, the stake youth leaders are picking up this gentleman from the airport and bringing him out to the scout camp. We're doing our thing. The storms are blowing in, and literally as we hit Third Nephi, the tornado sirens started going off. There were storms, thunder, lightning.
Oh no!
All the youth, literally, it was like, okay, everyone down in the basement,
of this
large
scout lodge. It was a pretty large basement, but there's almost 200 people down there.
Yeah, so 200 people down in this basement during, while the thunder, lightning, tornado sirens. They take these down in the basement.
Our gentleman got here.
They got here. They got him in costume. We were getting him ready upstairs. Meanwhile, they had already planned on having, during the soundscape, having all the kids, well, basically, turn off all the lights, have the darkness, have all that, and then having the kids just be quiet. 160 teenagers asking them to be quiet. That's always an adventure. But anyway, so they had them down in the basement. They sang some songs, some hymns and stuff because there were some literal, scared teenagers down there. Like, there's a tornado coming our way.
Right.
It missed us. We're still here. We didn't hit. We didn't get hit. But
at the last possible minute.
But yeah. So basically, we're getting things ready upstairs. They had the youth downstairs. I went up onto the tower of the set because I was going to be running the spotlight.
And I was running the sound and the rest of the lights.
Mm-hmm. And they get the kids.
Well, it calms down.
It calms down. And
the weather clears up again. I didn't have to use my soundscape that I was going to create. We had it.
Natural soundscape.
Natural soundscape.
I didn't even push play.
The kids come up from the youth and they're silent. They're completely silent. There had been enough of a feeling already of the spirit that was there of, okay, Heavenly Father's in this storm. The storm is here for us. And so they come up and they get them all settled down, sitting down. And our actor comes out portraying Christ, and
I turn on the microphone and it works.
Oh wow!
It hasn't worked
the
entire time. We weren't sure if it was even worth using it, but we're like, oh, we want everyone to hear. We'll try. And so they turn on the microphone. It works. Worked the entire time he was there, and then it wouldn't work any of the rest of the time.
Wow. But
it worked the whole time he was using it, and he spoke some of the words that Christ spake in Third Nephi. I had the spotlight shining on him. I was up above, watching it from up above. And then the plan was for him to go and kind of do a small, walk partially through the crowd, interact with a few of the kids, and then leave because he had to go catch a plane.
On his own.
On his own. completely unprompted by anybody. He ended up going through and shaking hands, hugging, speaking to, interacting in some way with every single youth that was there.
All 160 of them.
I was up behind the spotlight, drenched in sweat because, I mean, lots of humidity, Midwest humidity.
Yeah.
Everything.
Right.
Spotlights are not cool. They
Right.
very bright. hot
It's
light.
1,000 watts.
Yeah.
850 to 1,000 watts.
And so I'm shining this light on him the whole time as he's going through, and it was about 2 hours,
A little less than 2 hours.
a little less than 2 hours, and he interacted with every single youth.
And there was just a spirit and a silence and a power.
And they weren't talking. 160 youth, not a word.
They all waited for their turn.
They waited their turn. And that whole room, I've never felt the spirit that strong.
Oh my
Just the
goodness.
love of Christ.
Wow.
Like I am literally in tears.
You
Like,
big baby,
I am
Alicia.
not even there, and I could feel it.
It's so great. I mean, it's one of those things
No, it's
where
just so cool.
I was sitting at the control booth and I was watching Jennie, and I could tell she was just in tears. And from across the stage, I was in the back of the room, and
Yeah.
the leaders sitting around me were just in tears. Everybody was just in tears, just feeling how powerful this was for these kids.
Yeah.
And he finished his job. He sent home. He made his flight, so he got home. And I remember there was this one boy that came up to me as we were wrapping up that night. He said, is the guy that played Christ still here? And I said, unfortunately, he's not. He had to go. And it was one of the hardest things I had to say to that young man, was because he just needed him there. And I was like, I'm sorry, the man is not here, but the spirit is. You can still be there. And I don't know whatever happened to that. He was from a different unit, and I don't know his name. I just remember very vividly the look of despair on his face, that he just wanted that spirit again when I said that man wasn't here. But, took him aside, helped him out. But
Yeah, so we wrapped up the last day. Once again, storms went on schedule.
yeah,
Um,
we took everything down. Nobody got hurt. Everybody had a great time. And it was all because of the faith and the sheer determination of Alyssa Massey, our state young women's president.
well, I also think it was the focus of the state presidency and the focus of the entire state. to be
Focused on their kids.
focused on their youth and getting them ready for this youth conference, allowing them to come, for those that sacrifice the time to be able to come.
Mhm.
I remember saying before the event happened, I was talking to a few people. I've done hundreds of shows, even before this. This was a number of years ago. I worked on hundreds and hundreds of productions, and it is the dream of every artist, and that's what I am. I'm an artist, that to have their art change somebody's life.
Yeah.
And that is the only production I have ever done out of the hundreds that I've done that I know changed someone's life. And it was also one of the simplest, one of the smallest in scale. It wasn't grand.
Mhm.
It wasn't gigantic. It wasn't pizzazz. It was this simple, small set with a simple technology, a few lights, a few speakers, a few microphones, a few props. And that was it. And it is the most important production I've ever done
Wow.
out of the hundreds that I've done. And I don't know how that has affected the people that were there. And I don't think I'll ever know. But I know it did. And that's enough for me.
And we do know that of the youth from our ward that were there, all the young men served missions,
And most of the young
and
men.
most of the young women.
How cool is that?
That is amazing.
So who knows how influential that, they get their testimony of the Book of Mormon at this youth conference, went on their missions. I have no idea how many people they brought into the gospel because of it. I'm probably never going to know. But it was one of those, again, this was all in hindsight. We didn't really see it at the moment.
Right.
Except for the fact that we knew this was going to be a big thing. All of us in the leadership knew this was going to change the lives of the people, the kids that we were working with. But we had never dreamed it would be as big as it was. Didn't even think it would be as big as it was. Didn't even come into our minds.
And just then soon thereafter, we actually, after doing this, because it was our third year in St. Louis, that fall, we ended up applying for and
on a whim. I applied for the position at Weber State, where I came to meet you guys, and I got the job, and we left St. Louis.
So we felt like that was why
I was
we were
there.
supposed to be there.
I got the job at SLU. We moved to St. Louis, and we did all of that just because the Lord needed Jennie and I there with the people that were already there to do that youth conference for that youth. Maybe it was that young man that came up and talked to me afterwards. Maybe it was just for him. I don't know.
Well, I can tell you guys.
Just look at all of these amazing miracles that happens when you just do daily life.
Right.
Yeah.
I can tell you guys, you need to give yourself some credit, because I remember, Jennie, the girls' camp that you were director over, and we had some crazy stuff happen when Callie and I got stuck on that what was the rope course thing? You remember that?
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
And it was, Bryce, you were there too, actually. And it was terrifying, but it was one of the most spiritually impactful moments that I was able to have with the youth. And I think about that, and I think about like how neat it is that you guys are willing to serve, for one, but that you take your whatever capacity of serving you're doing, whether it was calling or if it was even just a volunteer thing for, one random activity. You guys take it so seriously, even when, Jennie, you were sharing scriptures beforehand with Bryce and just kind of trying to give him a perspective of like, what's the most important thing? What do we need to focus on? I really, really love that. And I love how I just feel like the youth activities are so divinely inspired. When we think about youth conferences and FSY and camp and Trek and all of these activities, I just think I know for me as a teenager, they were some of the things that solidified so much of my testimony, that I look back, I've forgotten a lot of activities that I've had in other areas in Relief Society and things like that. But holy cow, do I remember the youth activities. I just think it's awesome that you guys were like willing to be there and to give of your time and your talents and your energy and to work cohesively together and to like consider everybody else. And I don't know.
Well, and working with the youth we both got to work with the youth there in Ogden as well and had opportunities.
Yeah, you were in the Young Women's Presidency, and I had councilman assigned to the Young Women at the time.
I wasn't in the Young Women Presidency. I was just the camp director.
You were just camp director? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
You were the camp director.
we did two girls camp. We did 2 girls camps that summer because that's what Heavenly Father told me to do.
Yep.
But also, the summer that we were Trek Mom Pa for Clarissa, we had been kind of the backup Mom Pa. Like they had other people. They asked us. We got the call 2 weeks before Trek saying, "We need you as Mom Pa. Can you do it?"
Wow.
And so we did it because that's what Heavenly Father asked us to do, and that's kind of been our. Before we left Utah in the first place, when we were praying to know what we were supposed to do, I was terrified to leave home. Bryce had already been on a mission. He'd already left Utah for a couple of years. But I was afraid, like my whole family, my whole life was there. And as I was praying, it's the one time that I feel like I felt words as an answer to prayer. And I heard Heavenly Father tell me that if you go and if you follow my guidance, if you do what I ask you to do, I will never leave you alone. And he has, I've seen that, whether we were in Illinois, whether we were in Missouri, our time in Ogden, already our 2 years here. We moved here to Lincoln, Nebraska. I was put in the Relief Society presidency 2 weeks after we moved here. And that was like, I don't know anybody. How am I supposed to do this? But through my faith in Heavenly Father, he's made it all possible. And he guides me and he helps me fulfill my callings, and he helps me to serve and do what I know I need to do. But sometimes knowing that I need to do it and knowing how to do it are two completely different things.
Right.
But it's just one of those things where whether you realize it or not, if you're living the life that you should, you're trying to do your best, you're using the atonement on a daily basis, you're just trying to be your average Joe guy or girl or whomever, those miracles will happen. And you may not notice it until years later, but just the minor miracles of how we met, where we went to school after we got married, where our careers led us, all of those little bits and pieces, years and years and years before this youth conference happened, that put us on those tracks to get there when we needed to be there. And Heavenly Father will make sure that you are where you need to be when you need to be there if you're following him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what an interesting thought, Bryce. Like when I was the bishop, I always was mindful of the time, because I knew that we were only going to be there. 5 years is a long time, but it felt like it was just going to be such a short amount of time, and we had to really make it count. Like I always thought that in the back of my mind, because the only thing that changes is time, right? Like it's never going to stay the same. And for all of those people at any point in time in your life, for the people that are around you at that moment, you can do, sometimes people come together for reasons we don't know, but God knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we're always just willing to show up and just be there for God, he's going to make amazing things happen, like he did with you guys in St. Louis, right? And I'm sure that's happening throughout the rest of your life, and it will continue to happen as long as you continue to show up.
Yeah.
Well, and have the faith. You have to you show up, and then you put one foot forward and the next forward. The hymn "Lead Kindly Light" has been, I feel like, kind of a theme song for my life, where it's like, okay, sometimes I have to have faith enough to just be able to move forward, only seeing that one step ahead, and know that Heavenly Father is guiding me and leading me where I need to go.
And you may not figure that out until years and years and years later. A lot of the stuff that, even about that youth conference, we didn't really figure it out until years later. Now a lot of those kids, I'm still in touch with a lot of them through social media and stuff. A lot of them are now getting married. Most of them are getting married in the temple. They're starting their own families, and I couldn't be prouder of those kids. Mm-hmm. Those are awesome kids. And the youths in our respective areas right now, they're awesome kids. They are stronger than people ever believe. I've spent most of my church callings working with the youth. To this day, I still wear a young men's duty to God badge. And when I was serving as a high councilman in Ogden for the young women, they gave me a young woman's torch pin to wear on my lapel. I wear them both all the time because the youth are the most important
piece.
Just most important people that we have in our church. We have to teach them. We have to take care of them, and they'll take care of us because they're just that great. They're a chosen generation. So,
yeah. Oh wow. I'm all teary-eyed today but it's great because it's making me think of we just had FSY here, and so my boys went to it and stuff, and my oldest, I love it because when we talk, which is not very often because a lot of times he doesn't want to talk to me.
We've got one of them too.
But usually when we talk, even if we get into a deep conversation, it's usually not a spiritual conversation. It's very like logical with Jack, and he got back from FSY and he was asked to speak in church and to just kind of share about his experiences and stuff. And so as we were talking, he starts telling me about, the testimony meeting and just how everyone was crying, including himself. And then he got up and he shared some of the things that he had shared in his testimony with me. And it was like this moment where I just thought, oh, like my son is so much stronger than I thought he was, and it really showed me that they're listening. Our youth are listening. They are watching. They are taking things in. We may not see it. We may not feel it all the time. And maybe sometimes they don't even understand how much they're learning. But when you get to put them in a position where the focus is their testimony and their growth and their progress, and it's not about what the adults want, but it's about how can we better them? How can we help them to build a relationship with Jesus Christ and to know their purpose in this world and to understand where their testimonies are? I think that all of a sudden, all those lessons that they've held it gives them permission to like let them out and to look at them and to be like, oh, there's my testimony. This is what, what I've been building my whole life. And I didn't realize it until this moment. And I love so much that the church has all of these amazing opportunities to push our youth outside of their comfort zone, maybe even to irritate them a little bit by being like, like one of the things they made a rule, no slow dancing at this FSY. And of course I was like, what? Cause I was just a big old flirt when I was a teenager. And I empathize. My 14-year-old was like, Mom, he was really upset. But in hearing the feedback and knowing, what, that's not even what it was about. They still got to have fun. They still got to build relationships. And most importantly, they were able to have an opportunity to share their testimony and to recognize their own testimony.
Yeah. Our son, our 15-year-old son, just got back yesterday from his youth conference. And I was down there this morning and I asked him a question. Because I asked him, okay, kid, what did you learn? And he stops and he thinks about it for a second and goes, it's not necessarily what I learned. It was more what I felt. Yeah. And I went, good kid. You figured it out. And he's like, yeah, that makes sense. So, it's just like your son, our son is not exactly the most open person in the world, but he's a good kid and all of our kids are good kids. And like I said before, they are the most important people in church by far. And we both have lived our lives to try to do whatever we can for them. So, yeah, you can't stop. As a teacher, I'm a teacher. You can't stop people from learning. They will learn no matter what you do. Yeah. The point is, as parents, as teachers, is to guide that learning so that they're learning what they need to learn.
Yeah, for sure. Well, they have a lot of crap that they have to deal with that we never had to, right?
Yep.
Oh man, it's hard, but it is really cool to see them shine through it. And they are really strong, and God really did prepare them for today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, do you guys have any last thoughts or comments before we wrap things up?
I think we've covered just about everything.
It's been an interesting path that, I always talk about, how our journeys are going. And it's always a good thing in my heart when we get to cross paths again. And it's been great to be able to cross paths with you guys again, from Ogden to wherever we are now. It's fun to see you guys again and just to get to have another conversation like we did while we were in Ogden. Just crossing our journeys and
totally.
Hopefully we'll be able to cross again sometime.
For For sure.
Yep. Alicia, did you want to say something there?
Well, I was going to ask you guys, because you guys have always stood out as one of those couples that just really like love and respect each other. And I know that's going to sound crazy, but like I've always looked at you like you guys deserve your own TV show.
Really? No, I do not. I am not an actor.
It's okay. It'll be all candid. It's totally fine.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to prepare any lines or nothing. No, but I've always thought about that. And I thought, oh, I wonder if this is part of the reason why. So I just wanted to ask you, like, how has serving together with the youth, even though, sometimes it's a calling, sometimes it's not, like, how has that helped you guys in your relationship and as parents?
It's an interesting question.
I think it's helped us focus on, obviously we have good days, we have bad days as parents, but I think being able to try to focus on opportunities for our own kids and help encourage them. Week before last, our activity days group took the senior primary kids up to Omaha to the temple grounds. So they went to the
Winter Quarters Temple.
The Winter Quarters Temple up in Omaha, and there's a visitor center across the street where they talk about the Mormon Trail Center and the time in there in Council Bluffs and Winter Quarters before starting across the plains. And our 11-year-old, we have two girls that are that age. Our 8-year-old, I went with her, and but our 11-year-old had a different camp that she was scheduled to go to. And she was in tears the night before. She's like, Mom, I didn't realize what I was saying yes to when I said to go to this camp, because I know that the temple's important and I want to go to the temple tomorrow. And I told her, well, sweetheart, we committed to this. It was a theater camp and she had to be there to learn her lines, learn her part, to be able to be part of the performance. And
we're a theater family, huh?
Yeah. And we felt strong. I felt strongly in talking to Bryce. He supported the thought that this time she needs to go to the camp because we made that commitment. Mm-hmm. But then I also told her, I will take you to the temple. Like, I know you want to go to the temple, and your desire to go, I can see how strong it is. Mm-hmm. And so yesterday, she and I, we had a girls' afternoon. We went up to Omaha, and we took a couple of hours, and we went to the visitor center, and we went to the temple. And afterward, just before we left, she gave me a big hug and said, Mom, thank you for bringing me to the temple. And thanks for realizing that I needed to come here without all my friends, because I wouldn't have actually felt the spirit with all my friends here. I would have been playing with my friends. And she's so excited. She's like, okay, I'll be old enough in January to go to baptisms. Can I schedule an appointment now? It's like, no, we have to wait a little bit longer. We have to get the recommend first. But it's just seeing her desire and being able to help guide her and help her find the desire to want to go. And even our teenager, I mean, it's hard to sometimes gauge how he's feeling and how he's interacting.
Yeah.
But we've had early morning seminary here at 6:00 every morning. We live 2 blocks from the church. So I wake him up and he walks to seminary.
We go back to bed.
And he gets up every morning. He goes to seminary every morning. And that's with me just poking him and saying, okay, get up. It's time to go. Mm-hmm. I don't have to drive him. I don't have to sit and wait for him. And not only that, but his friends, the people he invites over on the weekends, are his friends from seminary. Mm. Those are the people that he's chatting with on his phone and that come over and play at our house, and developing these relationships, these gospel-centered relationships, and desires to make our focus the temple, make our focus building our testimonies
and service. That's another big thing. How do we help? And I think, to answer another question of yours, Alicia, Jennie and I, yeah, we're like any other normal couple. We have our ups and our downs and our days where we're, angry at each other and where, maybe I didn't do something right around the house or Jennie forgot to do something or, whatever. We have like every couple, we're going to celebrate our 20th anniversary in December.
Wow.
Awesome.
But I think the biggest thing is that we just try to serve each other. Just, check in. Are you okay? What can I do?
And we've been blessed. I'm with my accounting degree. I'm a bookkeeper for a live entertainment crewing company. It's actually located in Boise, but I'm able to work remotely. But we both work in the arts, and we both see the ups and downs of that.
It's not an easy career
of that industry. It's a hard industry to be in, but we support each other. And I know what he does for a living and he knows what I do for a living. Not all couples actually know to the same level, but part of it is
I have no idea what John does.
But it's because
I know something, but I don't know.
Yeah, we work together and we help each other in all aspects of our life.
We're both the oldest in our families. I'm the oldest of 5 kids and Jennie's the oldest of 8. And so when we got married, we were the first kids in both of our families to get married, and so there was no, besides our own parents, there was no like example of how to do this. We couldn't follow example of our brothers or our sisters or, just our own parents. And then we actually ended up spending a lot of time away from home. We moved up to Logan and then we moved out to Illinois and we really had to learn as newlyweds to rely on each other and to serve each other and to help each other as best we could because it was just us. And I love my Jennie. I love you.
I love you too.
I love you guys too.
We love you too. Yeah.
Oh,
We want to be part of that.
I know.
It's been awesome having you guys on the show.
Yeah.
And
for
what a
sure.
cool story. I love that. God can make amazing things happen,
Mhm.
Just on an everyday, minute by minute, it's there.
Yeah.
He's planned it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, he knew when it was going to be raining and when it wasn't.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm not a weatherman. I'm an artist.
Yep.
But you can make it rain, probably.
Yes, I do know how to make it rain indoors. That is
There
one
you
thing
go.
that I do actually know how to do. Wow, I know weird things.
Yeah, you do.
Why do I know weird things?
Oh man. Well, thank you guys again for coming out and for sharing your story. And I really love the fact that in before we started recording, you were like, it's not like some of the other stories, like the big stories that you've had in here, but it's such a beautiful story. And it's something that definitely has just helped my own testimony. And I know that it's going to help a lot of the people who are hearing your story on this episode and stuff like that. It'll help them to feel the spirit. And so I want to encourage our listeners who are out there, guys, if you have a story to share, something that helped build your testimony, don't be afraid that it's not big enough or, you know what I mean? That it's not tragic enough or funny enough or whatever. Like, your story is enough. And Scott and I would love, love, love to have you guys reach out and to let us know what your story is, to see if we can have you on as a guest on Latter-day Lights and to be able to spread that light. But in regards to Bryce and Jennie, if you guys would just make sure that you leave a little comment for them, let them know, what your favorite part was, and how it might have inspired you, that would be fantastic. And of course, do your 5-second missionary work and hit that share button, because we would definitely love to have more people hear all about these experiences and these miracles.
I have stage fright, so don't share too much.
Too late, no.
I have 2 degrees in theater and I have stage fright. So.
That's funny.
Been doing this for 20 years. Almost 20 years.
More than funny.
Well, thank you so much,
again,
guys. This was great to see you guys again.
Yeah.
Hope your families are doing well.
Yeah.
really
It
do.
is too.
They are.
So
Cool. Well, for those of you that are watching, thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week when we'll have another story to share. So till then, take care, and we'll see you then. See ya.